that defines your identity. It shouldn't, because is that really you?
As you're saying it, try is like a fail-safe word. So it's giving yourself permission.
All right, we got another one for you guys. This episode, we're going to talk about our words. Are your words programming your life? I'm going to ask you this question. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I'm tired, or I'm stressed, or I can't? And then your whole day just follows that? Have you, KayCee?
Okay, I didn't know if it was. Yes. I'm listening to you, but I didn't know if it was a rhetorical question.
Right.
But yeah, you stub your foot, you almost trip, something like that, and you make a comment, a snide comment, and it seems like the whole morning is crap.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I go the biblical way. I know
I'm just gonna smile.
when I first saw this with regards to your, immediately I thought of your words have meaning. Every word that comes out of your mouth has meaning. And there is a proverb in the Bible, Proverbs 18:21. It's death and life is in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat the fruit thereof. And that means your words, whether they are good, whether they are bad, positive or negative, death and life, controls your day, your mood, things that happen to you. So when we were discussing the topic, that verse immediately came to my head because to me, it rings true with regards to that.
I definitely believe in that. I look at it more as spelling. Again, I'm just thinking about like if I'm, say you're not even in a bad mood, you're at the grocery store and somebody else pass by and go, "Hi, how are you?" And it's just something as simple as that. Or somebody gives you a compliment on something. It really is uplifting. It lifts your mood. Whereas
Right.
on the flip side of that, somebody cuts you off, somebody runs the light, which they do out here a lot. And you almost get sideswiped. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but that stuff has happened. And your mood, it just that, and the verbal gymnastics that go along with that, it totally brings you down. So again, and also spewing, because you might not be saying something to yourself, but you're lashing out at the situation. So it has an awful lot to do with your comings and goings, for sure. Happen in an instant if you're not careful.
This made me think about when we talk, are we
Yes.
programming the way we think, our day, how our day is going to go, how we see ourselves by the words that are coming out of our mouths?
Oh, absolutely. Have affirmations taped onto my mirror. To your point, what you say, and even if I'm feeling crappy, I still say, I make myself look at the gratitude part of my day. I said it before, even I know of some family members that are extremely negative, and we'll be in a conversation, and I'm like, can you at least say a couple of things that are positive? I got this going on. I got that going on. I said, here's the thing. Did you wake up? Did you wake up this morning? Do you have all your faculties in check? Can you walk? Oh, I got this bunion, but can you walk? There's some people have no leg. They wish they can get a bunion because
Right.
they have no friggin' leg. Over the years, I've had to do that myself. Okay, let's be grateful. What are you grateful
Right.
right now? Things that look bleak, it's always darkest before the dawn. Things are about ready to turn around. And that I learned from church. The
Mm-hmm.
darker it is, you want to start to rejoice because now you know that light is coming. In the evening, about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's the darkest before the sun starts to rise. So it all plays hand in hand. So you need to make sure that you are aware of what you're saying.
Words have power.
Yes.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't believe that, but I would challenge people to be aware or do an experiment. They do have an experiment. I don't know if you heard about this experiment. It took place in China or Japan. They
Mhm.
had two things of water, and one they spoke negatively to,
That sounds vaguely familiar.
and
Okay.
one they spoke very positive, very loving to. When they cursed it, they talked negative to the water. They said everything, and then the other one they spoke so lovingly, froze the water. And then afterwards, they put the water under a microscope, and they could tell the difference in the content of the water. And I think they also did it with a plant. One plant they spoke positive to, one plant they spoke very negative to. Plant that they spoke negative to wilted and died. The other one flourished.
I mean, was it back in the 80s when
Mm-hmm.
people really spoke to their plants and everybody thought either you got on board or you thought that was the craziest thing out there? I didn't get on board with it because back in the 80s, I was still living with my parents. So it was like, that's the last thing I was concerned about. But I remember people would talk to their plants because they said they can feel the vibe, they can feel the love, so to speak.
Yes, yes, yeah. It changes you. And it changes people. It changes your inner as well as your outer. I wish people would do a test on yourself. Speak, watch the words that come out of your mouth. just for a day and see how your day goes. And then speak positively about your day. Like KayCee was saying, gratitude, wake up with gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Thankful that I have a roof over my head. Thank you that I have a car to drive, food to eat, things of that nature. And watch how your mood switches as opposed to waking up
Yeah.
with, gosh, I owe this bill. Oh gosh, I got to go to work and deal with this boss. Change the way you say things and your mood will change.
Yeah, not too long ago, I was in the car with my granddaughter and we were getting off the freeway, and it's a really busy intersection and you really don't want to get caught hanging out in that intersection. Got off, no problem. The light switched to green. Then we turned and we got to the other green. And I said, oh, we're on a winning streak. We made the green lights. We're like, yeah. And on the way home, I'm sure it's the algorithm. You get there and everything turns green. But it was like, oh my goodness, green lights. There you go.
I wish people would get some type of context around this because I don't think a lot of people talk about this. Even when I go to the gym or when I make the effort to try to go to the gym, I'll say, oh, I think I'm going to try to go to the gym today. If I say try, I think I'm going to try to go to the gym tomorrow. And more than likely, I don't do it. When I say I'm going to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that sets more than if I'm going to try to go to the gym or I want to go to the gym. I think I'm going to go to the gym. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more affirmative, I guess you could say, more.
As you're saying it, try is like a fail safe word. So it's giving yourself permission to fail. I tried.
Mhm.
I tried. And then what do they say? Nothing beats a failure but a try.
Here goes one of these ones. Hold on. Nothing
You
beats
never
a
heard that
failure.
before?
No.
Yeah.
Get down these KayCee colloquials.
Oh, stop it. I'm getting triggered here. But okay.
You're like, oh God.
Yeah.
So it's like telling your brain, I might do this, but giving yourself a way out.
It gives you a way out when you're
Right.
using the word try. Another one would be should.
You should. Don't you
You
think
know,
you should?
I'll try.
If you say I should, you better tell me I better. Yeah, I should.
Yeah,
Shoulda, coulda,
exactly.
woulda.
Exactly. It's kind of the same but different, but when you have everything going on in your head, so bebopping and ping ponging from I got this to do, I got that to do. But as soon as you put it down on paper, it makes it more tangible. So taking that should to I will the thing, it makes me move differently on a try versus, okay, I have this part of my grocery list. Now I'm going to look for it. When I'm
Right.
telling you, as far as I'll try, I'm on my list here. And should I come across it, then you'll get it. But it has different connotations to go with it.
The brain hears certainty differently than it hears possibly, right?
Exactly.
And that's also with the way you speak, even with your tone. You're going to go with the person that sounds sure of themselves as opposed to the person that doesn't sound assured of themselves. You're going to go with the person that's more confident in what they're saying as opposed to someone like, I don't really, maybe. Yeah, that could be. You're like, well,
What do you
what is it? Do you know your job or you don't? But even in content creation, people are attracted to folks that are good speakers or very confident in what they're saying and make you believe they know what they're talking about, right?
They're great orators.
Words, the way you present your words, the way you organize, construct words and form sentences, those things do matter. So, absolutely. I think people should, including myself, I'm pointing finger at me, definitely need to work on my words. And I do that daily because I can catch myself saying something that's negative about me or anybody else. And I try, wait a minute, let me run that back real quick. And sometimes I can do it, and it's gotten better for me because I'm more aware. My God.
I'm as good as I can be until you try to cut me off.
Yeah.
No holds barred then. You're going to be everything at that point.
Right. Everything except the child of God. Yeah. If anything can trigger me, that can trigger me.
One of the things too with my grandkids, I always tell them, I always let them know who's the favorite depending on what that person did that day. And I always go, stop the presses, put the TV on pause. So and so is now the favorite because they maybe did something for me. So just let everybody know they're the favorite. They're like, yeah, okay. But that's more of a funny thing that I do with them. But on a serious side, each one of them brings something different to the table, to the family, to our inner circle, however you want to look at it. And I tell them, I say, okay, you know that I love you. Why do I love you? Because I am, and then they say their name, because I'm me. I love you because you are who you are. I've got a lot of grandkids, so I don't want them to ever feel that I am favoring one more than the other, unless I make that grandiose announcement, which I kind of do that on purpose to desensitize them. The oldest is 13. So at this point, they could give two shits what I do or say. But as they get older, I don't want to hear, oh, you favored so-and-so more than you favored me or gave more attention. So they get all the attention if they fuck something up or they're doing something great. They get those attentions. Sometimes they might get more attention depending on what's going on in their life than they care to from me. But I still let them know it's not because of what you did, it's who you are. I've been taking one of my grandkids to tutoring. One of
Mm-hmm.
the songs we play all the time when I start my day, and I said, hey, I do this as well, is SZA talking about you're special. I think
I
that's
think
her.
so. I think so.
But anyway, it's a
It's
song
kind of
that,
like an affirmation.
so when she's rolling up in there, and then we listen to our jazz just to kind of set the tone, and then
Mm-hmm.
we go buck wild when we're done because we're back and in the car and we're happy. But I always let her know that, hey, you're special. This is your special time right now with your tutor. This is where you make all the mistakes you want. This is where they correct them because you're special and you get this undivided attention. And it's not, I don't want her to think it's like this punishment. And then
Mm-hmm.
when she looks at her report card, her progress report, she sees where all that hard work is paid off. But again, spelling, words, they mean a lot. And I always call her, oh, look here, smart girl. You think you know everything. It all plays hand in hand.
It does. That's a good point with regards to your granddaughter. Kids remember more what you say than what you do. If I think about my childhood, I remember the negative things that my parents said quicker than I remember those positive moments, right?
Yeah, I don't know if your parents did it, but it was like they would say negative things, those little isms. If my dad come home from work, he's tired. Me and my brother were fussing to go, God damn it, go play in traffic. Just get out of here. Go play in traffic. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No,
You
not go
never heard
play in
that?
traffic.
Oh my God. Obviously, he didn't really mean to do that, but it translated into get out of my face because I'm tired. But oh, yeah. So again, spelling, words,
Yep.
if you took them verbatim.
Literally. Some kids do take it literally. Now that you have children that are on the spectrum, they take words literally. I do look at things that my mother said or things that my
Mhm.
father have said that I can look back and see how some of it shaped me. Not always for the positive. It was planting a seed.
Yes.
And I don't think that they meant it intentionally to plant a negative seed or a seed that would follow me throughout my life, but I think it was more that's how you were reared back then. Parents wouldn't necessarily say all the right things, or they wouldn't, your punishments or the verbal whoopings that you would get were sometimes
Mm.
more damaging
Yeah.
physical whoopings that you got. So those verbal whoopings lasted a lot longer, maybe even over the years. I can definitely attest to that with regards to certain
Yeah.
things.
Even with me, sometimes I'll say stuff and I just don't want my kids, grandkids to be soft.
Mm-hmm.
So from the upbringing I came from, you'd rather your family member be mean or rude in what they say or did because the world out there is more vicious than what your family could be. That was the mindset. So you rather hear it from me so you'll be prepared for what's going on in the real world. And I
Right.
even use that same type of philosophy. Like I'll say something to my kids when you got little boys that are
Mm-hmm.
like 10 and 11 and
Mm-hmm.
they haven't gotten the whole body hygiene thing down
Oh,
completely. I'll say things and they'll be like, dang, Pia, that was rude. You get around classmates, you want to hear rude. You rather me tell you to go wash your ass than have them tell you. They're
right.
like, no. But again,
Yeah.
it's like, what you got all this cologne on for? You smell, you got stinky. You just
Cologne
stink.
and
Which is why I tell them, you come see me, you got to take a bath. I take showers. No, you don't. You might take a shower to rinse off, but you're gonna soak that ass. And then they got a ring around the tub. You don't wash yourself properly when you shower. It comes down to I'm trying to prepare them
mm-hmm.
because the words that they will encounter when you're in school, because kids can be
Cruel.
so cruel. And some people that will affect them because now, again, not gonna get on this whole subject, but the whole bullying thing, I don't understand it. But again, words and the whole fighting thing, I don't agree with that. But at this point, I'm just talking about words. A lot of people have taken it to heart and have actually harmed themselves based on what they heard.
Words. And I also wanted to go back to what I was saying about people being on the spectrum and them taking words literally because as my son was born, he was on the spectrum. And so it took a lot to get him to understand satire,
Yeah.
facial expressions, as well as not taking things literally, what you say. What you were saying about being in school, he did have some of those days where the words that some people said would affect him. And you have to practice affirming your child. You really do. Because even though we were brought up differently, we were brought up, they always say Gen X is the F around and find out generation. It was like you would play the dozens back and forth. Our words were like,
Of
ooh,
course you
mama,
did.
your mama, da 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 da. They didn't grow up like that. So it's a different type of, I had to learn how to say things differently to him. If I had to pinpoint a time when I really understood that your words had power was raising the youngest boy because
Okay.
of this type of stuff. You really had to hone in on teaching him about certain words and how to maneuver because of people and what they may say and how they may say things and how it
Hmm.
may affect his mood because somebody said something. And it might not be as negative as what it was,
Okay.
but his understanding of it or his thought process, because he would take things literally, you would have to reel him back in and make him
Okay.
be that it's not that bad, but he took it as bad. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
how I see some younger people nowadays, because they get so, like what you were saying, some kids may do something to other people or to themselves based on words. A lot of times they take what people say very literally to heart. Like I said, we weren't as soft. Should I say soft? We were pretty durable. We were pretty sturdy in our growing up. Those things didn't really harm us like they do with kids now. And so I had to adjust the way I spoke to my son and how I worked with him on how to maneuver. Because me, I'm like, suck it up or say something back, but that wasn't him. So I had to teach him about words, and what you think they're saying is not really what they're saying. It's not really as bad, but I also had to be considerate of how he felt,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't have that really too much to do with my kids growing up. And I made sure that they didn't, not that I had a bad childhood at all, but growing up and being one of only two Black kids in an
Mm,
elementary school, you could imagine I was able to run pretty quick because I was chased home a lot. There's certain things that'll have a lasting effect. I tried to prevent, you try to protect your children and prepare them as much as you can. But
right.
again, they have their own interaction with things. I just made sure that based on what I had to endure or go through, however you want to look at it, that they didn't have to deal with that. That was mainly my kindergarten and first grade years. And then second grade on up, I went to a more integrated school. So my
Right.
parents took me out for that reason. And I was really timid and shy, but I was a sitting duck at that point. And so then going to this other school, it was a lot more diversity. And I had a good friend at that time, and she basically taught me how to fight.
See, different
Taught,
era.
taught me how to fight.
No, I'm just playing. But
Excuse me.
it's different in school. My son is in his 20s now, and those talks helped him with how to understand what people are saying. Even at work now, he has come a long way because he's a working man. He'll have situations at work and he'll come and talk to me about what happened at work and how he dealt with it. I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, that's how you do it. But I don't think if I would have babied him or, you know,
Coddled him.
yeah, he would talk him through the scenario. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think that meant? Because I realized I had to be like, what do you think that meant when they said blah, blah, blah? And so now he uses that at work. When you work with people, you work with different personalities. So you're going to have to learn how to maneuver, how to talk to people, digest what's going on, and move accordingly.
Like a lot of people, I always tell them experience is the best teacher. When I was younger and working, I remember I felt weird calling an adult by their first name because all these years, high school and even in college, depending on the professor you had in college, you still address them as Mr. or Miss or whatever. So it felt really weird with the words because I wanted to show respect and all that kind of stuff. And as time went on, and now the age I'm at now, your first name is everybody's name like everybody else. In my job, back when I was doing the 9 to 5, I used my full name. I didn't allow you to shorten it. That meant that we were friends and we were buddies, we're coworkers. And that's one thing I always understood. And of course, I made some lifetime friends from my job, few and far between. But overall, no, there's people that go out, they fellowship with their coworkers, and you guys get to talking and saying different things.
Mhm.
Again, here come the words, and then you
Right.
come back to work on Monday and you hear other renditions of what you talked about, or people know a little bit more about you than you care for them to know. So yeah.
No, I get where you're coming from with regards to that work. You're not going to get along with everyone's personality. I would
Right.
say it's more of a difference of ethics, morals, work ethic. So
Mhm.
you're not always going to agree with certain people, subscribe to that. But I wouldn't label it. Some people may label it bullying. I
Mhm.
would label it more. We don't see eye to eye. Bottom line, we don't see eye to eye. And sometimes I did have a situation where I didn't see eye to eye with a coworker, and
You're so agreeable. What are you
right,
talking
so
about?
agreeable, right? But you can't do like you did in high school. So what do? You document. You document conversations. You
Yeah. Yeah.
document instances, right? make sure that you cover yourself. CYA, that's what they used to call it. Cover
Yeah.
your backside. So
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
I'm still on that same trajectory of words.
Mhm.
When you come across somebody and you meet them, for example, there was one individual, because like I said, I was a sales rep for various businesses, and
Mhm.
hey, can I call, just trying to shorten my name? I go, no, I don't go by that.
Okay.
Being professional, but your words mean a lot. And I said, you got two choices. You can either call me Mrs. or you can call me my full name. Those are your two choices.
They were trying. They didn't ask you. Did they ask you? Could they call you the name, or did they just?
They shortened it at one
Yeah.
point, and then they go,
Okay.
is that okay? And I go, no, that's not okay.
Okay. Okay.
So
Did you take more offense of them doing it
no,
before they
no.
asked you?
It would be addressed before I got off the phone. However, they're talking and they say, hey, hold on, another question I have. And then they, oh, do you mind? And I'm like, yeah, actually I do. This is what I go by. Or you can call me.
That with your name too, because people shorten your name.
And
Right.
I
It's
do have
like,
friends that do shorten my name, which is fine.
mm-hmm.
But in a business setting, you're not going to do that unless I give you permission. And if you
Right.
forget, then you only call me by my married formal name, period. I'm not mean or nasty with it because, again, we're still talking about words, but being very direct. And this is how it goes. And
Absolutely.
with your words, teaching people how to treat you
Yes.
and everything.
Now that let's segue into this job thing since we've been speaking about jobs, right? So when we talked about job, I kind of saw it as identity. And then I know we saw this in two different perspectives. Me, when I was looking at it, I was looking at identity. So when people, a lot of times when I look at myself, a lot of times if people ask me, so who are you, or to introduce yourself, I'll usually introduce myself and then I'll say, I've been, especially at work, like you mentioned this, and I don't want to steal it, but we have
Don't
had,
steal it, girl.
when you go to a different position or when you start somewhere, you're in a meeting and everybody doesn't know each other. They always do this round robin. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Icebreaker. I hate those
Yes.
things. Oh,
We used to have to, with this company I used to work for, in order for us to get to know each other as a new group, it wasn't an icebreaker per se, but every week we have weekly meetings. Because we were such a new group,
yeah.
every week one of us would have to present. We would have to come up with this presentation to present like an icebreaker about who we are. And so you automatically go into, oh, my name is blah, blah, blah. I've been recruiting for X amount of years. I'm also a mother, a wife, blah, blah, blah. I have 2 dogs. I've been here, I've been there, that type of thing. So it was like, it was almost like that was your identity, all these nouns, titles, and this and that. I'm a wife, I'm a recruiter, I'm a this, I'm a that. When I see that job, I automatically go to that defines your identity. It shouldn't, because we are more than our job. But a lot of times that's everybody's go to. It's either your job, your title, if you're married or single, if you have children. But is that really you? Or is that just things that you have that encompasses? It's not you per se.
I had a different take on it because I had said one of the reasons why I hated doing icebreakers, first of all, I know the premise behind that is to kind of find a little bit more about you. So you're at work more than you're at home. So then everybody can kind of get to know you a little bit better. And we choose to present what we want you to see. So I get it completely. But if you're in a position that you don't care about, you don't like, you don't want to be there. And like I said, I remember years ago, starting out early in my work life, I was a receptionist. If you're utilizing what your job is as far as identifying yourself, I was like, ugh. No, everybody said, oh, I'm this, I'm a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. I'm just a receptionist. I didn't like presenting it like that because of the way I felt about being in a cubicle 9 to 5. And I knew there was something else out there for me. When I'm thinking of job, I'm thinking of being stuck. It's like I'm stuck in this position, whether it's something that I like. It's like, oh, I got to go to work tomorrow. Kim, that's your job, or this is my job. And it just seems like a ball and chain. Even if it's something that I like, it's, oh my God, how many more years would I have to do this until I retire or until I can find something else? Right. So I just never kept it as my identity. People didn't even know what I did. If you worked with me, obviously you knew. But yeah, I just think of it as stuck. And I know people are like, God, what do you call it? Debbie Downer on that kind of stuff. But for me, that's what it seems like. Icebreakers, you're just being nosy. You just want to find out. And no, I'm not playing those reindeer games.
You also said something that I'm thinking about it, because for me, I automatically identified with my job title. And it shouldn't define me, but it did. And I didn't realize it was defining me the way it had. It was literally what paid me. My
Hmm.
occupation actually was my identity for a little bit. I didn't really realize it.
But you liked what you were doing. So I think that makes a difference. I don't care
Right,
if you were overworked or you got this,
right.
that, but you really liked what you were doing. I didn't have a problem going to work, but I was disillusioned and I knew I had to have a job. I had kids to feed, mortgage like everybody else. I had to pay for my shelter. And I did get good, high paying jobs. But again, it was because I had to take care of family. I always knew I was going to be some sort of an entrepreneur, didn't know how it was going to happen, but I always knew it was going to happen some way or somehow. Like I said, I'm sure you were excellent at your job. I think even for a while you had placed somebody at my job, in my department. Remember?
Yep,
Being
yep.
in HR kind of things, you can't really say. But yeah, I'm sure you really liked what you were doing.
For a lot of years, because I've been doing it for 20 some odd years. I like the opportunity to, I guess it's the curiosity in me, because being a recruiter, you get to recruit for so many different types of roles and different types of companies and different types of industries.
Okay.
I'm always curious. I was always curious about, what does this company do? Or what type of people work for a company like this? What do they do? So that fed that for a lot of years, and it happened to pay well. That's where it came from. But at the end of the day, I think where it gets mucky, especially in today's climate, is when you have been attached to a role and it becomes your identity. That's how
Yeah.
you see yourself. And then there's layoffs, there's downsizing.
Yeah.
Then you're like, who am I now?
Yeah.
I've been here for X amount of years. This is what I've done. This is my body of work. You're laid off or you're downsized, you're rift, a reduction in force. And they give you, it's not, we got to make some changes and things, or we got to roll some
Hmm.
things back, try to make
Yeah.
you feel good. But mentally, you are looking at, who am I now?
True. True.
Yeah. That's when I think that identity, it's not so good being wrapped up in your job like that. I definitely learned, because I've been a part of RIFs. That's for me though, it's kind of like the norm. Recruiters are like the first to go in talent acquisition or HR. Talent acquisition is usually, if they're going to make cuts, talent acquisition is where they can start cutting, because if you stop hiring or hiring freezes for any length of time, guess what? You don't need a lot of recruiters.
No. They start shuffling. Okay, now I'm going to handle this territory, that
Right.
territory. When you have this kind of a load that you're adding to your caseload, that's how they did when I was in the medical field for years. They were doing that there. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think me obtaining my identity back from that was being a part of RIFs before. I went more the consulting route, where I was in charge of my own life. I knew there was a span of time that I was going to work for a company. And then if it got extended,
Hmm.
okay. Or if I wanted to leave early, okay. I felt more in control of my life.
Okay.
That's how I looked at it. That was like me gaining some control back, because my first riff was like, what? I don't have no job. What?
Luckily, I hadn't experienced anything like that. So I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
part of any layoffs, but I did hop jobs a lot when I was younger. I think the most I would stay at a job was maybe 5 years. I would get that itch, start looking, and then hop to the next one. But as I got older, that jump didn't happen as often. And it's like, shit, you know.
That's true. You're getting older, and then yeah, they're looking at, okay, well, how did you leave? But at least you did 5 years. It's different when you see people hopping 6 months, a year, here and there. It's, what you
Well,
doing?
I say people today, if it ain't working, I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse. I'm out of here. I know
Right.
some people that do it. At first, I thought it was mainly the ones who are still living at home and they didn't have to worry about certain bills. But then I started seeing other folks that, yeah, I've got bills. As soon as they accepted one job, they're still looking for another one because they know that's not what they want, however long it takes them to get out. And that's what they did. I did that in my younger years. Got there, I was like, ooh, this is not for me. I was there long enough to get another job and bounce from there. And then
Absolutely.
the next for 17 years.
It was easier when you were younger and you didn't have a lot of responsibility. It's only when
Right.
you get responsibility, then you like, oh, I need to land my plane. I need to be somewhere for a length of time, because I have these things that I'm responsible for and people that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Changes
Yeah.
your whole vibe.
Man, kids in private school, do you really need only 8 people in a class? You could do well with 40.
Absolutely. Younger people nowadays, they don't stick around
Mm-mm,
for any
mm.
length of time. Especially nowadays, they like missions based companies more, that have a mission that could possibly impact the world or impact something, to where that I had a part in that. I noticed that a lot of young people would look for, but they don't stick around for 2 years, 3 years. If they don't
No.
like it, they plan and they exit. It is not a problem for them. Also, not even into home ownership the way we are. They're like nomads. They would prefer to be remote, being able to work, take their laptop and work somewhere on a beach, at a coffee shop. They're definitely different. It's not an identity thing for them.
I'm wondering about these remote jobs. Are those even things still anymore? I know there's the hybrid thing they're doing now.
They do exist. There are companies that are trying to reel it back in and do a hybrid form of work life balance. Their remote positions still exist. They do still exist. They're just not in the masses like they were. And it's usually hybrid, but the hybrid is not as bad. A lot of companies are maybe 1 to 2 days a week. You get some that are like you need to be in there 3 days a week and you get 2 days off, but a lot are like 1 or 2 days a week come in the office. So it's not as bad. And if you're salaried, you don't necessarily have to be there all day, right?
Okay.
It's just more checking in, especially with bigger companies. They bought these big buildings, these elaborate buildings, right?
You're in a pod. You don't want me to leave.
Yep. They have the pods where you could go take a nap. We didn't have the groceries, but you would order your lunch. So they would have all these, it could be Korean, it could be Italian, it would have all these different, you could order your lunch, it would be there. Then we had the masseuse that would come on Fridays and yoga, things of that nature. And then they had alcohol. So you could beers and wines where you can have a little drink after. It'd be happy hour. Definitely a lot of that going on. And when you first see it, you're like, because if you came from a regular Fortune 500 company, they didn't do none of that. You just had coffee. You had a little coffee area. Or you left and you went to lunch. But these places, everything was right there. At first, you get enamored by it. Oh my God. And then you get used to it and be like, okay, you trying to keep me here.
Yeah.
When do I get to go home? Oh,
yeah.
Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to you working on somebody else's dream, not your own.
Yes.
Just to throw that in there.
And stay identity. So then you are working someone else's dream. And that plays with your identity too. So I'm going to ask you this question and we can land it. Do you think that jobs, the way the world is now with jobs, that has stolen the creative side of a lot of people, the entrepreneurial spirit of a lot of people?
Absolutely. Depending on what your job is, you're doing it 9 to 5. By the time you get home, a lot of us on the West Coast commute 5 minutes to an hour. Then you're coming home and some people are just dog tired. Yeah, you do what you can do, but you have people that go to school after and work on another degree or get their degree period. It takes a lot because you're tired when you're done. They talked about how they split up and how they came about the 8-hour day. They do just enough to let you get recharged to come back to continue working, to work on your thing. Even when we had one of our guests here, Yinka, when she was working a regular 9 to 5 and her other job that is now flourishing, she was doing that at night. So how much sleep are you actually getting? And you still got to perform your job. It does take a special person to be able to break loose while still doing a job. For the record, I'm not anti 9 to 5ers because my husband for 38 years worked a 9 to 5 with 6230. That was the steady thing because I was job hopping and got this entrepreneurial hair up my ass. He was the rock that kept everything going. So there's no way I'm going to poo-poo it. But for me, it was a hard pill to swallow. I did it because I had to. I had to feed kids, put them through school. We chose to put them in private school, but we knew them being in private school would be a lot better than a classroom with 30 to 40 kids. We had to pay.
You had to pay. Exactly. I definitely do agree with you with regards to it has stolen the creativity of a lot of people. It can suck you dry. And the people who are creative, when you create something at work, it's not even yours. Because when you sign a offer letter and you sign that paperwork for that company, you also sign over, it says anything you create at that company for that company stays with that company. So it becomes their IP, their intellectual property. I do believe, and I always go back to this, 2020 has changed that. AI is changing that because we were seeing after layoff, companies laying off thousands of employees, blue and white collar workers. You have to learn how to be creative again and become an entrepreneur because you don't know when you're going to be employed or if you're employable anymore in your current function or your current identity, that job title. So you may have to learn how to tap into that creative muscle, your brain, and come up with your own brand, your own something, because there are a lot of people being laid off and not knowing when they're going to be back to work. I see it on LinkedIn all the time. People are like, I'm 3 years post layoff and I still haven't found anything. Yeah. I don't mean to land it as a negative. I think it's positive because we were born creative.
People have come up with ways to improve their financial standing A lot of it was because against the wall, you had to make something work. A lot of people are doing the cooking and selling food out of their kitchen. Now they've gotten certifications where they can cook out of their kitchen. And you see it all the time. The influencers are going to certain neighborhoods and getting food, as well as brick and mortars, as well as food trucks. So there's all these things that are evolving due to people needing to make money.
And when I say AI, they get, but there are people creating jobs for themselves through AI. It is making things a lot easier. Yes, some of it may be taking your job. I agree and disagree all at the same time. I do think we are resetting because there were a lot of jobs that were added to companies during the pandemic because the government was throwing money at a lot of companies. And so companies were hiring a lot, over hiring. I think it's an adjustment and also AI. It's twofold. It's not just all AI is taking all our jobs. But with that, I do believe that a lot of this is going to help a lot of us be creative again and tap into a different part of yourself and create something for yourself. Brand your own self, be your own boss. Some people will be able to do this.
Yeah, I agree.
We talked a lot.
I didn't think we were going to have much to talk. We really didn't. Okay.
We talked a lot. Hopefully, you guys took something from this. We started off with your words matter. Your words matter. And then we got into identity and job and things like that. Like, share, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you feel about words. Do you believe words have power? Do you believe words can change your trajectory with regards to your day or your mood? Let us know in the comments. And what about identity on the job? Are you a person that has worked somewhere and felt that when you identify yourself, when you say you are, do you automatically add your job title, where you work, and explain who you are when somebody asks you? Would love to hear from you. As always, thank you for rocking with us. Until the next one, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.